we all got to do our job, and he excelled at a high level. He broke a lot of tackles and, fell forward on a lot of runs. So we like doing our part on it, but he deserves the accolades.
And that is center Maurkice Pouncey talking about James Conner not only winning the AFC Offensive Player of the Week honors, he was named today the AFC Offensive Player of the Month. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, but let's take a look at Thursday's practice report. Some good news, some bad news. Feels like we say that every week, but it is true today. Ben Roethlisberger did not practice on Wednesday. He was a full participant today. So was Maurkice Pouncey and Bud Dupree. Back at it as well. Ramon Foster did not practice today as a coach's decision. And then the bad news comes in for Marcus Gilbert. He was a full participant on Wednesday. Today he was limited. And good news for Cody Sensible. After not practicing on Wednesday, he was a full participant today. So those are two guys we will definitely be keeping an eye on Friday at practice before the Steelers' status report comes out. And joining me now to talk about the AFC Offensive Player of the Week and the AFC Offensive Player of the Month, Bob Labriola. James Conner, just one of those weeks where things are really aligning for him after putting together 3 consecutive games of over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns in those games.
Yeah, James Conner is really performing well, and he's doing, the running the ball stuff. I think, I won't say it was secondary, but in my mind it was kind of more of a given with him than a lot of the other things. When these guys come from college, a lot of times featured running backs don't have a lot of experience in the passing game, and by that I mean all aspects of it. The running of the routes, the catching of the ball, the being in the right place for the quarterback to find you when it's necessary, and then also understanding pressure that the defense is going to try to apply to the passer, and the ability and willingness to step in and stick your nose in a linebacker's chest and give yourself up to protect the franchise. And James Conner is, as you mentioned, Player of the Week and Player of the Month. Probably not because of some of those things I was just talking about, but when you look at the way he is playing, what he means to this team, those are very significant factors as well.
All right, and going back to round 1 against the Ravens, we did not see much James Conner that game, at least in terms of putting up the big numbers that we saw these previous 3 games. But it is Coordinator Thursday, and offensive coordinator Randy Fiechner says it wasn't just the run game, it was everything on offense they did not do well.
We were on edge a lot in protection. We didn't throw the ball extremely well. We didn't catch and carry and control the ball very well. We didn't probably hit holes well enough. I know that the wide receiver group probably got out physical in our run game and in pass releases. So there's a lot of things that we know we have to be better at. That was just a small few. And then if you're going to just talk about general, me personally probably didn't, stick to giving James more opportunities. And probably went a little bit too quickly just to throw the ball.
And from everything Randy said after practice today, Labs, it really sounded like when the offense did go back and watch that first game against Baltimore, it was not pretty, as he said. A lot of things that did not go in their favor, but I think that was week 4. That feels like a long time ago, even though it wasn't maybe in terms of games, but the Steelers' offense has certainly started clicking and getting things going. So hopefully better luck in round 2.
Yeah, and Missi, the thing with Steelers-Ravens games to me, I really do believe this. When these two teams play, the team that wins what I would call the battle of the hitting, the team that controls the line of scrimmage, that team is going to win. There's not a lot of fancy things or gadgets or gimmicks. Fans like to talk about adjustments and, all of those kinds of things. But to me, Steelers-Ravens is pretty much primal football, the way it was played and has been played for decades. And if you're not willing and able to win your individual battles physically on both sides of the ball, not just the offense with the defense, but also the defense with the offense, you're going to lose. It's that simple. And so, Mike Tomlin, when he was talking about the first meeting in terms of the offense, he said the Steelers didn't convert enough possession downs in the second half, weren't able to string, plays and series together. Yes, that is accurate. But to me, the base reason why the Steelers didn't convert those possession downs was because they were getting handled physically. And so if that doesn't happen Sunday, the Steelers come home 5-2-1. If it does happen again Sunday, they come home 4-3-1. It's that simple in my mind.
All right, let's get a listen now from defensive coordinator Keith Butler on not giving up big plays.
Like Seymour, we gave up one to these guys last time we played them. 13 run down the sideline on us and got us. We got to make sure as much as we can, if we can keep the ball in front of us, the better chance we got to win the game. We can't give up easy touchdowns, and if teams go up, we got to make them go up by 3s and not let them go up by 7s if we can.
Kind of the same thing there on the flip side of the ball, but also the fact it is in Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium where it is loud. Their crowd gets into it, and the Steelers don't have as great of a record down there sometimes against the Ravens as they do in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and Keith Butler mentioned the big play that John Brown made in the game at Heinz Field. One of the things, though, I don't know the specific numbers, but one of the things, if you're tracking this Steelers defense to this part in this season, the number of big plays allowed is down. Those, 40-yard pass plays, those kinds of things. It hasn't been as bad this season as it was, last year and the year before. And I think a lot of that can be traced to Sean Davis now being the free safety, replacing Mike Mitchell, who was having trouble, running, covering ground, those kind of things. I remember talking to secondary coach Tom Bradley during the summer up at Latrobe. And one of the things he said, we were talking about Sean Davis, and he was injured at the time and really hadn't seen a lot of him, and it was going to be a position switch to free safety. Tom Bradley said, at free safety, if you take the wrong angle or a false step, the next thing you hear is the fight song, which means it's a touchdown. And, that's a college, and that's where he came from, college. So we haven't been hearing the fight song too much this year so far. When the Steelers have been on defense, and I think you can credit Sean Davis to some degree for that.
All right, Labs, thanks so much for joining me today on Steelers Live. Tunch is standing by to join me after this break with his scouting report of the Baltimore Ravens. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone. As always, on Thursday, Tunch Ilkin is here with his Sirius XM scouting report of the Baltimore Ravens.
Thanks, Missi. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. And when you start with the offense and you're talking about the Baltimore Ravens, you got to go Joe Flacco. And one of the things that I've noticed about Joe Flacco is he's done a great job finally assimilating into Marty Morningwig's West Coast offense. You think about this. In Joe Flacco's career, he's had 5 different offensive coordinators and all different schemes. Now, one of the things you'll hear people say is, well, you know what, Joe Flacco, people are taking the long ball away from him. I don't know that defenses are taking the long ball away from him as much as he is now a West Coast quarterback. I never thought he'd fit into this system, but he's done a great job. He did a great job against us last time around at Heinz Field. I think he went 7 for 9, 7 out of 9 out of his first 9 passes. And you notice he's spreading it out. He's finding his tight ends. He's finding his checkdowns to his running back. He's got his wide receivers. But the one thing that you will notice that he does a great job in rhythm, getting the ball out of there quickly. Now, when he throws the ball long, it's usually on play action passes, and a lot of times it's out of the boot action. They do a lot of the outside zone, inside zone play action passes, and then he's going to roll out, and that's when he looks to go downfield. Now, he does a great job in rhythm, getting the ball out, and I think he's finally comfortable in this offense. When you look at their wide receivers, they've got 3 different wide receivers that are all really good. Starting with Michael Crabtree, he is their possession guy. He's got great hands. He's very physical. He's a tough guy, and he does a great job of catching the ball in space. Also, you've got John Brown. He is their big play guy, number 13, and he beat us on a big play last time at Heinz Field. And when you look at John Brown, he's got the speed to get behind you. And the other guy that the number 3 receiver is Willie Snead. He's the underneath guy, does a great job finding the chains, moving the chains, and he does a great job underneath. He's another one of those bigger, tougher receivers, and does a great job in space and in crowds. So when you look at their wide receivers, they're pretty good. They also have 4 tight ends on their roster. 2 of them are rookies. Mark Andrews, we saw in the first time. He is a special guy. He's physical. 81 number Hayden Hurst. He's the first-round draft pick. Extremely fast for a tight end. He's a 4.6 guy. He can get behind the secondary as a tight end. And then you've got 87 Max Williams. He does a great job as well. He's more of a blocker. And then, of course, 86 Nick Boyle. He's the H-back. He's the guy that likes to jump over guys. These guys play all 4 tight ends. The one thing that is in the Steelers' favor is the fact that their offensive line has been dinged up. Ronnie Stanley, their starting left tackle, hurt his foot last week. He was in a walking boot. You had Alex Lewis, their starting left guard. He hurt his neck. James Hurst, the starting right tackle, hurt his back. Now, I read in the paper today that both those guys want to play. I'm not so sure, but we'll see what happens because their offensive line has been rotating a bunch of guys in. On the defensive side of the ball, Missi, Terrell Suggs is the guy. He is the energy bringer. He is the hot wire. They don't call him T-Sizzle for nothing. And at this point in his career as an old man, he's still getting after it. Now, one thing you do notice he knows when to turn it up and he knows when to turn it off. A lot of times you'll see him freelancing, and a lot of times you'll see him give you kind of the okey doke. He'll start out a little slow like he's jogging, then he'll accelerate and he'll get to the quarterback. He did a great job here against the New Orleans Saints. He did an even better job against the Tennessee Titans and the Carolina Panthers. He's still a terrific pass rusher, and you know what? He still plays the run. He sets the edge terrific, as we just saw in that video clip. And the other guys, they feed off him. And when he comes to the quarterback, he's going to try to strip the ball. Now, my favorite pass rusher of these guys is the guy on the other side, Darius Smith. He's an outside linebacker. He is tied with Terrell Suggs. They both have 5.5 sacks. But I like Darius Smith more because he is more physical. And the thing about Darius Smith, number 90 there, he can play inside or he can play outside. He is relentless to the ball. He's still a young man, which means he's got a lot of juice, and he does a great job of bull rushing and explosive pass rush moves. He's got a tremendous club, and he's got the full range of weaponry. He's got a rip, he's got a club, he's got a bull rush, and he's got a swim move. Did a great job against the New Orleans Saints, and it was on the inside on the guard. So he's 275, which means he can play outside linebacker or defensive end, and he can play inside on the guard. You've got to know where he is at all times, and when you play against Darius Smith, you have to be technically sound. The linebackers are all good, but they're led by C.J. Mosley. C.J. is a great guy. He is the classical thumper. He's 6'3", 250 pounds. He plays downhill. He does a great job of taking blocks on. He also has the speed to beat the blocker to the spot. And normally he leads them in tackles, and he does a great job of whether he's got a feel for the game, Missi. So sometimes when he's out in space, he does a great job of tracking people down, and also he can play from the backside, run around blocks. He's athletic and fast enough to run around blocks, but he's more of a thumper. He's going to take you on physically. That's my scouting report on both sides of the ball of the Baltimore Birdies, as Myron would say.
All right, Tunch, thanks so much. No mic dropping this week. For our Steelers Nation Unite members, our keyword today is North. So head to SteelersNationUnite.com and enter the keyword North for joining us today here on Steelers Live. That is going to do it for this Thursday edition. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m.